Imagine having an extra £1,000 to spend each week for an entire year. £54,321 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to spend however you like. £54,321 in cash could be landing in your bank account this year. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good evening. It's me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, on State of the Nation tonight. The Libor scandal has been shown to be a great miscarriage of justice as 2 convictions have been quashed by the Supreme Court. Meanwhile, are we facing a tinderbox Britain as the public anger over the migrant hotel regime that Labour promised to end hots up in, of all places, Canary Wharf? Business confidence in the net zero agenda calypso collapses as new research reveals green policies are no longer the priority of British firms. Plus, Goldman Sachs boss David Solomon has warned Labour's attack on non-doms is destroying Britain's growth prospects, and I'll be asking Charlie Mullins about that for tonight's finale. State of the Nation starts now. I'll also be joined by my most forthright panel, political consultant Kevin Craig and the former Reform press spokesman Gawain Towler. As always, I want to know your views, mailmog@gbnews.com. But now it's your favourite time of the day, the News Bulletin with Katie Bowen.
Jacob, thank you and good evening. The headlines at 8 o'clock. Essex Police has issued a dispersal order in Epping following a series of demonstrations outside a hotel believed to be housing asylum seekers. It comes as the police force has denied it bussed counter-demonstrators to and from a protest outside that hotel last week. The force said it did escort some people away from the Bell Hotel in Epping for their own safety, but any any claims about the deliberate use of counter-protesters are categorically wrong. A series of demonstrations have taken place outside the hotel after an asylum seeker was charged with sexual assault earlier this month. He has denied those allegations. 10 anti-migrant protesters have been arrested on charges of disorder following scenes police have described as mindless thuggery. Elsewhere, 2 former market traders who were jailed for rigging interest rates have had their convictions overturned. Former Citigroup and UBS trader Tom Hayes spent more than 5 years in jail after becoming the first person in the world to be convicted of manipulating Libor in 2015. Carlo Palombo, an ex-Barclays trader, was jailed in 2019 for a similar offence. He's also had his conviction quashed. The Supreme Court ruled there was ample evidence for a jury to convict both men had it been properly directed by the judge, but it had not, therefore undermining the fairness of the trial. 2 children and a woman have died in a shooting in County Fermanagh, police in Northern Ireland have confirmed. A 4th person, a man, remains in a serious condition in hospital after the incident in the Dromere Road area of Maguire's Bridge. All 4 people are members of the same family, police said. Superintendent Robert McGowan confirmed all 4 suffered gunshot wounds. Officers remain at the scene, which has been cordoned off. The Israeli aid system is inhumane, ineffective, dangerous and fuelling instability. Those were the words of the UK's ambassador to the UN, Dame Barbara Woodward. President Trump spoke to Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, about the deteriorating humanitarian situation in Gaza. It comes as more than 100 aid agencies, including Oxfam and Save the Children, have issued a joint statement warning that mass starvation is spreading across Gaza despite Israeli denials. Israel has dismissed reports of numerous Palestinian deaths from malnutrition as propaganda. A UN Security Council meeting has taken place today on the situation in the Middle East. Representatives from Ukraine and Russia met in Istanbul for peace talks today, with the head of Ukraine's delegation saying that Kyiv is ready for a ceasefire now. Russian state media has reported that the 2 countries agreed to exchange more prisoners, including military and civilians. The White House is saying this evening that on the issue, President Trump wants to reserve the authority to make decisions on sanctioning Russia himself. And the King and Queen attended the annual Sandringham Flower Show today, viewing winners in flower arranging, vegetable produce and baking. The show has been held for the past 142 years on the King's Norfolk retreat. The Sandringham Flower Show, organised by some 15 to 20 local volunteers, sees about 20,000 people visit annually. Those are your latest GB News headlines. Now let's go back to Jacob.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to State of the Nation. 10 years ago, Tom Hayes became the face of the Libor scandal, a trader cast as the ringleader, sentenced to 14 years, later reduced to 11, ultimately serving 5.5 years in prison. Today, the Supreme Court has overturned that conviction, ruling that the jury had been misdirected and that justice was denied. Alongside him, Carlo Palombo's conviction for affecting Euribor has also been quashed. Why now? Because the court recognised that a fundamental legal error was made. The jury was told that considering trading advantage or even the bank's commercial interests automatically made a rate dishonest. But rates like Libor were never singular truths. They reflected a range of plausible submissions, often influenced by real economic pressures. Pressures emphasised not only by traders, but by regulators themselves. So here is the uncomfortable question. Were Hayes and Palombo scapegoats, fall guys thrown before the public to satisfy fury over a broken system? After all, low Libor rates suited everyone, banks, governments, borrowers, financial markets. In the midst of a post-crisis panic, the narrative needed villains. And amid that hysteria, the Serious Fraud Office, at that time and still under pressure from its many and manifold failures, was driven by public and political demands. Thus, it chose to pursue criminal prosecutions without fully grappling with the complexity of benchmark economics. The court today acknowledged there was sufficient evidence to go to a jury, but crucially, that the legal framing was wrong and their convictions are now considered unfaith. Today, Hayes says his faith in the justice system, destroyed by the original trial, has been restored. But imagine a trader sent to a maximum security prison branded dishonest, separated from his family, all based on a jury not allowed fully to weigh the commercial realities of their world, commercial complexity, contextual nuance, systemic regulatory pressures. These were treated as evidence of dishonesty rather than circumstances. That one judge's misdirection led to a decade of ruin. Today should be a moment of reckoning, not just for the men who lost their liberty, but for a system that too often responds to outrage, which is the blunt instrument of criminal justice. Let's not forget, Libor was manipulated to the benefit of the whole financial system. So was public perception. It's entirely fitting to ask, were these convictions ever about truth, or were they looking for a scapegoat for the financial crisis? It raises new questions. Cui bono? To whose benefit did the manipulation take place? And is it credible that much more senior people all the way up the regulatory ladder had no suspicion of a manipulation that suited them all? Did relatively junior people go to jail to save the blushes of a deliberately ignorant hierarchy? As ever, let me know your views via mailmog@gbnews.com. I'm very pleased to be joined now by John Butler, former Managing Director at Deutsche Bank and Lehman Brothers. John, thank you very much for joining me. You were in this world in 2007 and 2008. What was going on? What was going on the trading floor?
There was a major transition from the point that Bear Stearns, the investment bank, got into trouble, and the U.S. regulators arranged a bit of a shotgun marriage between J.P. Morgan and Bear Stearns. And then, of course, you had the Northern Rock run over here in the U.K. Now, I've worked on large bank trading floors on Wall Street and in the City of London in my career, and the change in mood was palpable. It was palpable in 1998. It was palpable in 2002, 2003, but it was the most palpable of all, 2007 into 2008. The mood changed from let's find new ways to originate risk and trade and make money to we need to start thinking about self-preservation, protecting the firm, protecting our jobs, and riding this one out.
And at this point, several banks were heavily overexposed, weren't they? They had more liabilities than they had assets, and they were finding it difficult to get the daily money that they needed to keep on in business. But they were too big to fail. And that was helped by having Libor at a low level.
It was indeed. Now, the nature of modern finance is that it involves a lot of leverage, and that leverage depends on a lot of liquidity. If you lose access to liquidity, it is all over. The problem that begins in 2007 is that the so-called basis risk between, say, UK government gilts or US treasuries and the rates on Libor begin to widen out. And that's indicative of counterparty and credit risk creeping into the heart of the banking system. And that started to spook the regulators, and spooked everybody for that matter. Hence why the gloom began to sort of flow over the trading floors.
And to simplify this, if you lend money to the government, you know it will be paid back because the government ultimately can print the money to pay you back in. So it's gilt-edged. It's as good as having any asset you'd like. When you lend to a bank, normally it's almost as safe, isn't it? Because banks don't fail. But that if you're a depositor with the bank and the bank fails, you risk losing everything. And therefore you demand a risk premium, a higher interest rate. And the city looks at that. So it would have seen that the risk premium on, say, Royal Bank of Scotland was higher, which doesn't make people put more money there. It potentially makes them take it away because they don't want to take the risk of losing everything for a fraction of a percent.
Which, of course, is the way markets should work. Prices are information. They are signals to all participants in the market where they should take incremental risk or where they should reduce incremental risk. And that was not being allowed to function properly.
And then the question is, who was responsible for this? Because what the court held was that two traders were the ones at the very bottom of the pyramid who were taking a decision that was fundamentally helpful to the solvency of great institutions and of the whole UK financial system. And do you find that credible?
Look, where there's smoke, there might be fire. What concerns me about this particular instance is not just that the wheels of justice might have turned a bit too slowly. They turned in the wrong direction. And what happened here was that people didn't actually ask the right questions. What I mentioned a moment ago, about the gloom coming across the trading floors is not the sort of context in which an ambitious young trader is going to come up with some scheme to manipulate the markets and try to make outsized profits when he's being told by senior management, no, now is the time to bunker down, now is the time to protect the firm. There was a moment on Deutsche Bank's trading floor in the summer of 2008 when a very senior person, I will not mention his name, marched onto the trading floor, demanded the hundreds of traders all put their phones down immediately and listen to him about a certain series of actions that would now need to take place to protect the firm. That is not the sort of context. And when some junior, young, ambitious trader who thinks it's a wonderful privilege to work on a trading floor like that is suddenly going to take enormous personal risk and also risk the firm itself by engaging in that sort of behavior.
And there was no personal benefit to the traders anyway.
It was never proven.
And they weren't making any extra money for the firm.
It was never proven.
Showing that the firm was more solvent than, in fact, it was. And this was helpful to the whole system because not only did the bank then appear to be solvent, but the Treasury didn't have to step in to bail out the bank. The costs of bailout, which came later, were lowered. The whole system was able to have a little bit more time to recover.
Absolutely, and you could say they were playing for time, but the fact is that that play didn't work. A situation that might have started out being just a little bit awkward became something that was chronic, and there was no way out. And sure enough, eventually it all blows up. But then when it does all blow up, of course, the modus operandi switches from let's try to buy some time to just pure damage control. And I suspect we may have seen some casualties of that damage control in this series of events.
But when banks that were highly exposed were putting out Libor that was as low as everybody else, who within the bank ought to have known that that couldn't quite be true, and who was not asking the obvious questions? Not necessarily by name, I don't expect you to say that, but by role. Is it the compliance team? Is it the senior directors? Is it the regulator? Is it the Bank of England? Or is it all of them?
By the late summer 2008, everybody on the trading floor who had any experience of what normal trading floor life was like, high pressure, yes, changing circumstances, yes, everyone knew something was wrong. No one could necessarily put their finger on it exactly who wasn't in the direct chain that was involved here. Everyone knew something was wrong. Everyone was suspicious. There were those hush-hush meetings around the water cooler and the copy machine. So the idea that anyone didn't have a sense of distress by late summer 2008 is simply not credible.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, after a short break and messages from our sponsors, Sir Keir Starmer will be finding out whether he's learned his lesson from Southport. Is Britain becoming a tinderbox? Find out in a moment.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Back in 2015, Thornton and Cleveley's resident Emma Shepherd noticed the grass in her garden wasn't growing. Within months, she had to put down Alfie, one of her beloved dogs who had developed throat cancer. Just weeks later, she developed a lesion on her back, which would later be diagnosed as skin cancer. She knew then that something wasn't right.
I wasn't really aware of the history of the ICI site when I took the property. I did so much investigation. I had the ground tested with my own money. There was high levels of metals in there and some obviously cancerous carcinogenics in there. They actually nicknamed me Erin Brockovich because I was so all over it.
Last year, a joint investigation was launched by the Environment Agency and the local council. That was following the discovery of PFOA, a man-made chemical that potentially causes cancer. Both parties told GB News they are now working together on this matter, whilst the company under investigation for the potential release of the substance had this to say. AGC Chemicals Europe sets the highest standards for itself and takes its commitments to the local community and to the environment extremely seriously. They added that they voluntarily phased out the use of PFOA in the UK by early 2012. Release of the substance was within the permits held by AGC Chemicals Europe at the time, and also UK legislation in place at the time. And yet, 2 months ago, residents within a kilometre of the site received this letter from the council, advising them not to consume anything grown in their gardens due to potential PFOA contamination.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Well, I'm still Jacob Rees-Mogg. The question is, has Sir Keir Starmer learned his lesson from the Southport protest and riots? Possibly not. While Angela Rayner has urged the Cabinet to recognise legitimate concerns of the public about mass migration, it appears the government hasn't been fully transparent. The government yesterday insisted there were no plans to house migrants in the Britannia Hotel in Canary Wharf. GB News understands the hotel has been taken over by the Home Office in the event of overcrowding at Manston Airport. But all of this comes as footage suggests Essex police actually took pro-migrant protesters to the anti-migration protest at the Epping Hotel in question. We are no doubt facing crossroads as trust in the authorities reaches new layers and tensions rise. Sir Keir Starmer must be clearer with the public if we want to avoid a repeat of last summer. Well, I'm joined now by the campaigner and former London police officer, Norman Brennan. Norman, thank you for joining me. I think the Essex police question is a very interesting one because they have a duty to maintain law and order and to allow people the right of free protest. So do you on balance think they were right or wrong to help counter-protesters get to the hotel in Essex?
Well, I've listened to the Chief Constable and I've followed everything that's happened. What I understand is that the police escorted them, didn't use their vehicles, taking them to the hotel area. But on the way back, they did actually put them in vehicles with a view of hopefully trying to avoid any antagonism and any public disorder. But let's look who they were actually escorting. They're not the mothers and fathers and families that were at Epping at the Britannia Hotel after a illegal migrant, as I understand, has been charged with 2 very serious sexual offences against young girls, which we can't discuss. But that is what has ignited this. So what we've had is a load of people turn up. It's got nothing to do with them whatsoever. They've taken the focus and attention away from these mothers and families that were protesting. And the police obviously saw a very volatile situation happening. Their vehicles were attacked. They were attacked. Somebody tried to open the doors and the police drove through barricades. So what's happened here, Jacob, is that the actual focus has been taken away against these agitators and against the police. And the big question here is, why are tens of thousands of illegal, undocumented migrants allowed to cross the sea onto British shores, and we collect them in lovely air-conditioned coaches and take them to top quality hotels and give them everything that millions of people at the moment are struggling to pay for themselves? That is where we should really aim this focus. Because if we actually stop people coming into this country illegally, Jacob, and then if they did come in illegally, lock them up, we wouldn't be having this conversation today. And all those police officers that were dragged away from 3 separate forces, and it cost over 100,000 just for that operation so far, wouldn't have cost us anything, and those police would have been allowed to get on with their jobs. That's the overall focus here that I'm afraid we've gone away from what's really important, illegal migration, and you hit the right note. It's a tinderbox and they're blue touch papers all over Britain just waiting to be lit.
And do you think the families in Epping who are protesting are justified in their protest, or it would be better if they made their views clear in another way? How do you feel about the families objecting to having hotels in their area that are full of illegal immigrants?
I fully support them, absolutely. And the thing is, Jake, and where do they go? The government is lost. We've got a Prime Minister that's utterly detached from the British public. It calls them far right if they dare demonstrate on the streets lawfully, where they're far from being wrong. They are right, but not far right. They're right. That too many people are into this country illegally. They're committing crimes against them and their children and their communities. And I can tell you now that police officers all around Britain have told me what their chief constables have told them not to tell the public, is that the crimes that they're committing are completely disgraceful. They're out of order. We haven't been told about the real number of crimes. They rape, they pillage, they burgle, they commit antisocial behaviour, and we pay for them to live in hotel accommodation that no pensioner and most of us can actually go to or even can afford to go on holiday to. That is the tinderbox that is just waiting to explode in Britain. And Jacob, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Norman, thank you very much indeed. Well, I'm now joined by my most forthright panel, the political consultant Kevin Craig and the former Reform press spokesman Gawain Towler. Kevin, this is very difficult because protests that lead to violence are wrong. Full stop. Law and order must be maintained. But it does seem that the government is losing control of migration and that this is really stirring people up. They have had enough.
I don't think the government's losing control. I think the last contributor there, who I'm very grateful for his service in our police forces and the fact that he's one of those many people who risked his life to protect us, but his characterisation of the Prime Minister is nonsense. The Prime Minister is not complacent about the fact that we have a problem with illegal migration in this country. The Prime Minister is not complacent about the fact that we need to get a grip on the cost of hotels. And there are a lot of people in the Labour Party, including the Prime Minister, because he mentioned it when I was at an event with him last week, who agree that it's outrageous that public money, for one second, Jay, because I had to sit through that, who are outraged about the money that's being spent on these hotels. And there are Labour MPs, as there are Tory MPs and Reform MPs up and down the country outside these places saying it's got to stop. At the moment, there's nothing wrong, and if parents were worried about the allegations by an immigrant in their area, they have every right to protest. I didn't like, personally, as a Labour Party supporting businessman and former councillor and candidate, to see that some of the people that the police were escorting for safety reasons had their masks on in public. Take them off. What are you doing? When did it become normal, to whatever side of politics you're on, to walk around our country with masks on? And, you know, you haven't got COVID. So there's things there that I share people's anger about. But the police had a difficult job, and there were far-right people on the ground in Epping, but it doesn't mean that the parents who were worried haven't got every right to protest.
All right, Gwen, let me bring you in on this, because there was a Rwanda scheme last year. There was a proposal. It's got worse. Starmer promised that the hotels would be emptied, that he'd smash the gangs. The numbers have gone up. This is making people lose
Smashing
confidence.
the gangs, as we all know, is absurd. I'm sorry. It's like smashing drug cans. It doesn't work. It doesn't happen. It ain't going to happen. Because the money's there. Because you smash one gang, it's hydra-headed. It pops up 5 more. You've got to change, not the gangs, because you ain't going to change that. You've got to change the pull factors. You've got to change the system by which... why do people come here? It ain't because they want to pay money to a criminal gang. It's because what they get when they get here. And that is the bottom line. But go back to what's been happening in Epping. Vast numbers of local residents, and I was listening to a local journalist from Essex talking about it. We're talking grandparents and children and all the way between. That is the vast majority of the people demonstrating, and that's day to day. It is true that outsiders have turned up to use this demonstration for their own political purposes, both on the right and the left. The fact is the police did ship or bring in people from the left to protest, not to take them out, to the protest. And that is serious. And then they lied about it, and then they were caught out for lying.
The police lied.
The police lied. That's why the front page of the Telegraph was all about today.
The police
denied that they'd done it, and then they had to accept they had, because video evidence, which we've just seen on the box, was shown. They lied about it, and then they had to admit that they did.
Right,
and it wasn't taking them away out of danger, it was bringing in. And then they said, the purpose of the police is to allow people to have a legitimate protest.
Let me read out what the police had to say, because that may help the discussion. The Essex Police said officers did provide a foot cordon around protesters on their way to the protest, where they and others were allowed to exercise their right to protest. Later, some people who were clearly at risk of being hurt were also escorted by a vehicle away from the area for their safety.
Imagine them doing that for Tommy Robinson supporters. It would never happen. Then smash them over there with a club and put them in a police van. I'm sorry, it's two-tier policing. That's what happens.
Well,
one side gets the red carpet treatment, the other side gets beaten.
No,
that's what happens in modern Britain.
In this instance, the police were trying to maintain public order.
Why don't they do it other instances?
Well, let's just stick to this one, because without going off on hypotheticals about Tommy Robinson, who I think has just come out of prison for
other reasons.
Right. So you had a very difficult situation here, and the police always get it from both sides. True. And they were just trying to maintain public order. Now, whether or not they miscommunicated in the course of this event, that will all come out. But I think that's what happened. And two-tier policing, that's an argument to be had. I don't believe that. The police, the other day you saw the police getting a load of flack because they went after some protesters for Palestine Action, which is deeply unpopular with some quarters.
Well, I have to say I thought they were wrong on that one, but and I supported. You can demonstrate. I'm free Gaza, fine. Demonstrate that, and it's wrong. However, in this case, I have never ever heard of the police escorting right-wing protesters to and from an event. I have heard them beat them up. I have heard them put in prison.
It happens at football all the time. Football matches are full of people being escorted.
This is not political. This is political.
It's to minimise violence and to stop violence.
I have never ever heard in my life of right of centre protesters being escorted to and from when Antifa, when their police, as you pointed out, their masks, masked up protesters, shouting all hell, being violent. Oh, but we're going to look after these guys, but not those guys.
There was no violence from them. To be clear, there was no violence from these people in this instance.
No, there wasn't. But the point is they were being escorted to and fro. And there was no violence from the right until there was kick-off. The point is, it could work both ways. I'm delighted that the police are helping people demonstrate. I'd love to see them help people demonstrate on the other side. Because you know what? If they did, maybe the violence wouldn't happen.
OK, I think you'll find across the country the police are applying principles fairly without political bias.
Why is the concept of two-tier justice, two-tier policing, why does it exist? Because that is not how people feel it on the ground.
It's sometimes chucked around by those who want to create a sense that these things are a bigger problem than they are.
The words came not from the ether, but from lived reality on the ground. Two-tier justice, two-tier policing, the words only came out from what was seen happening.
But where's the evidence?
It didn't come out enough. Where's the evidence? Everywhere.
But what does that mean?
Well, I think Gwen has a really, really important point. Right. Because I'm actually in favour of the police allowing people to protest. I think that's a fundamental right.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
So what happened was good then?
But when he says, have you ever seen this happen for a right-wing protest? You haven't, have you? You see them kettled and...
Kettled?
Kettled,
yes.
When they form a ring round them and they keep them in a place so that they can't move.
What they did here was not much different to that. They just walked alongside them.
No, they escorted them. The police commented, we escorted them.
And this is a
we
little
didn't
odd
kettle them, we escorted them.
These people, I think, had come to the train station. So they weren't local people involved. They were people who had deliberately gone out. It seems to me their intention was to cause trouble rather than necessarily to protest. That this was a local protest by people who were living through
Grandparents, children.
something that happened, and then you get rent-a-mob come.
Well, the rent-a-mob, I would say, can come from both sides.
I don't deny that.
Agreed.
That.
And so I think the police knew that there were some far-right groups.
And there were far-left groups with masks on.
Right. And
they were escorted.
But, I don't know who was in that group. My point earlier, which I stand by,
was a very good one.
Yeah, don't walk, whatever your politics, do not walk around this country with a mask on. It's
and we agree.
Totally,
and we absolutely agree on that.
But here, and the right of parents and grandparents and family carers to be angry and worried about their community is absolutely proper. But the police were merely trying here to minimise the amount of violent disturbance. And I understand, I think, after tonight, I'm going to go away and look over the past couple of years for every instance that the police have intervened, because I think there'll probably be examples of balance.
All right, well, next week we can discuss that when you bring your list
Absolutely.
Of far-right protests that the police have escorted. Anyway, I have been protected by the police, but I'm very moderate and in the middle of the road. Shortly, we're going to be talking about business confidence in the net zero agenda because it's in crisis. Oh, and we'll be showing you Sadiq Khan. Sir Sadiq Khan's proposed new £500,000 slavery memorial that is shaped like a rotten turnip.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you or anyone you know is heading further afield to find some warm weather during the next few days, it will be hot in Italy and Greece. Breezy for the Canaries as well as Madeira. It's also unusually breezy through parts of Spain and Portugal, with an area of intense thundery outbreaks through Mallorca and more especially Menorca. But it's southern Italy where we're going to see temperatures rise to unusually high values over the next few days and into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, a very good evening to you. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Look, a few of us have managed to see some sunshine today, but generally there's been a lot of cloud across the UK. Into this evening though, we should start to see that cloud break up a touch more, and there will be some clearer spells developing. The showers that we've had around today as well, generally fading away for many of us, though lingering across the far north of Scotland. A few mist and fog patches are possible, but generally it's going to be a mild night. Temperatures ranging between 14 and 17 degrees Celsius as we start off Thursday morning. Those showers will still be in play tomorrow as well across the far north of Scotland, particularly in the Northern Isles around the Moray Firth, tending to be on the light side, and they'll steadily move their way eastwards as we move throughout the day. Central southern areas of Scotland and Northern Ireland getting off to a drier start with some sunny spells poking through, and reasonably similar for Wales and western areas of England. But you will just notice this rain area in the far east, and that's going to slip its way across parts of East Anglia, down towards the home counties in London and eventually parts of Sussex and Kent as well throughout the day. So fairly damp and wet one to come here. The brightest and sunniest of skies reserved for those further towards the west, and here it should be dry and pleasant. And quite warm in that sunshine as well. Temperatures peaking around 24, maybe 25 degrees Celsius in places, 20 to 22 for parts of Northern Ireland and Scotland. As we move into Friday, we are going to see an occluded front just slip its way into the far northwest of the UK, and so this will start to bring more in the way of outbreaks of rain for Scotland and Northern Ireland first thing. It's a fairly weak affair, and it will tend to turn quite light and patchy as it steadily moves into northern England and parts of Wales as well. A few scattered showers just following behind, but in a reversal of fortunes from Thursday, it's now the southeast that will see the more prolonged areas of sunshine on Friday. Temperatures here climbing towards the high 20s, dipping down a little bit more as we head into the weekend. Enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
While Red Ed Miliband continues to run amok with his reckless net zero policies, British business confidence in the green agenda has plummeted. A new survey from the British Standards Institution has revealed both large and small firms are turning away from climate action policies, making a mockery of what was once called the future of British innovation. Well, my most incisive panel is here, Kevin Craig and Gawain Towler. Kevin, you're a great green advocate and you're a successful businessman. Are you part of this, or are you still advocating green issues in your business?
So why the survey is interesting is there has been a big change of attitude in all the people we deal with in America. So since the Trump administration, the change in tone on net zero and renewables has been remarkable. Well, one of the consequences of that is there's a lot of American capital looking to invest in the UK and Europe. Over here, I still support, and there is a lot of appetite for investment in renewables, for the jobs that it creates, what it means for its contribution to the temperature of the planet, and also as a real positive in our country. You might hear in a minute, I suspect, a different take on the whole net zero agenda. I think it's good for jobs, it's good for business. No offence to the British Standards Institution. Is that who they were?
Yes.
They're slightly a niche body, if I may say. They're not the CBI, they're not the IOD, they're not Energy UK. I'm very confident.
They're the BSI. They're standards the BSI. Globally. They're actually they're a very impressive organisation.
OK, I'll take your word for it.
They really are.
But yeah, I think there is a lot of appetite still for net zero and the jobs it's going to create.
You see, I think what Kevin says is fundamentally important in his first bit. That is to say, American companies are giving it
I think that's true.
And therefore, what we're doing is pointless.
When I read this article, I went, dope. Yeah, but of course, it's taken a long time. We are taking time. And whilst the point you make about the States is, I think, true, I also feel that if you read the New Statesman today, you've got Gary Smith of the GMB, that dodgy right-winger, saying that net zero, the third largest trade union, dreadful right-wing chap, saying that net zero is a disaster. It's a disaster for British jobs, a disaster for British industry, a disaster for British innovation, a disaster for the country. And so, you know what? I suspect the BSI, though a small organisation of which nobody has heard, is probably better attuned to the interests of many small business entrepreneurs and all the rest of it than maybe the CBI, who have never really given a hoot about small business. They're corporatists. They are interested in the government big business state.
OK, so and it was interesting recently when I saw that Reform thought they'd chuck a few letters around the major energy countries in the UK, putting them on notice and basically going against the attempts to try and use the net zero agenda to create jobs, prosperity and lower bills.
What about the oil refinery that's been closed down in Lincolnshire this week?
Yeah, but
it doesn't bring in jobs, it exports jobs.
It will end up creating more jobs.
Yes, in India.
No, not in India. In the UK, there's places all around our own island. Scotland, up north, Middlesbrough, the east of England. OK, there are jobs being created everywhere.
Yes,
from
2 jobs here, 5 jobs there, 7 jobs there. That's great because the public's subsidising them.
No,
but real jobs,
it's much bigger than that.
With private sector jobs, they are being exported in their thousands.
Well,
thousands.
The evidence is that
it's clear.
No, it's not. There's just jobs.
So why is Grenfell closing? Why is the Lindsay oil refinery closing? Why have we stopped investing in the North Sea? Why do we close down the idea of Barrow? Why are we closing down our industrial base? Because we cannot afford it. We cannot have AI without cheap energy. We're not getting cheap energy.
There's a phased transition, and
it's a phased transition where we cease to have any jobs.
No, we need jobs. I mean, this government is all about the Labour government.
So let's not have them in India.
Jobs.
Let's not have them here.
This government is all about rising unemployment, as far as I can tell.
No. Well,
as all Labour governments always are. We're going to move on. We're going to move on to slavery.
You've got off very lightly tonight, I might add.
Very lightly. What better way to remember the horrors of slavery than a £500,000 depiction of a rotten turnip? Well, that's precisely what the Mayor of London, Sir Steve Khan's planned for the London Dockyard next year, with a design from the American artist Caleb Brooks. And here it is. Yes, it was my suggestion that it looked like a rotten turnip, with the Telegraph then ran with that headline. So let's get back to my panel to discuss turnips. But also, you can have beautiful memorials. In the Victoria Tower Gardens, there is the Buxton Memorial, commemorating the abolition of slavery in the British Empire. It's magnificent, and it's in a great... We're showing it on the screen. And this is something we can be proud of, rather than this rotten turnip, and it's just dreadful.
Listen, I am not going to come on here tonight and try and justify the artistic merits of that particular statue, OK? And I also think that viewers and listeners, if they hear about a piece of art in the public realm that costs £500,000, it is also very, very difficult to justify that ever. So that's too difficult. What I do think is important is that we have works of art like this to commemorate important topics. You know, I'm not qualified to whether or not this is a rotten turnip. I don't know where that came from.
We're going to show on the screen for our viewers. I'm sorry for the people on the radio. Spot the difference: the rotten turnip and a piece of supposed art by some American artist. Wayne,
I'm baffled by it. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's trying to do. But I do know.
I think the rotten turnip's nicer, actually.
Possibly. It's a nice start. But I have no problem with public art. I really don't. But we have. This is not public art. This is guilt art. We already have a monument,
isn't it?
We already have a monument. It's good. The Buxton Memorial that you've just shown. It's a great piece of work. It's currently being restored, and I think next year it's going to be, in all its glory, be revealed. But this, why do we need another one? By the way, we ended slavery.
We did.
British blood and treasure ended slavery. Maybe if Sadiq had a monument and wanted to spend 500,000 quid of London ratepayer taxpayers' money on a monument to the West Africa Squadron for fighting it and ending it, British blood, British treasure, ending that slave trade, then maybe he might be onto something. But instead, we've got what essentially, in my mind, you think is a rotten turd. I think it's a tapering turd.
It's slightly blunter than I would choose to be. Apparently, the promoters say it looks like a shell that represents the currency that was used in Africa at some point. But we should be so proud of what we did to stop slavery, that we're the first modern country, we're the first country in history to stop slavery.
Yeah, but
because of our Christian faith.
But listen, you can still love this country, which I think all of us do here tonight, OK? It's a fantastic country with a brilliant history, but commemorating slavery and the end of it and the marking of the lives lost is not an act of self-flagellation. It doesn't have to be like that.
But we have a monument that's been there for 150 years.
But we can have another one. There's no limit on this stuff.
Well, there must be at some point. We'd have the whole country stuffed with monuments. Anyway, thank you to my most incisive panel. In a moment, I will be speaking to Charlie Mullins about the worst exodus of talent and wealth since the 1970s, as a top banker has castigated the government's high-tax agenda.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
You've read the headlines, you've heard what those in power have to say. How about now we actually get to the truth?
They would pay attention.
We go beyond the political theatre and tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. For a massive council tax hike, one of the biggest in the UK. Others follow their lines, but we go off script.
You sound like a broken record, just like week after week.
Cutting through the narratives and giving you unique perspectives. That's Ben Leo tonight, Saturdays and Sundays from 9 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's no secret that the Labour government's high-tax, anti-business policies have led to one of the largest ecstasies of wealth and talent since, well, another Labour government in the 1970s. Indeed, it is estimated we're set to lose 16,000 high-net-worth individuals this year. Goldman Sachs boss David Solomon has heaped the pressure on the government, claiming the scrapping of the non-Don regime is pushing people away, while as the country's status as a global financial hub is becoming fragile. I'm joined now by the founder of Pimlico Plumbers, Charlie Mullins. Mr. Mullins, thank you for joining me. Are you in tax exile yet? Have you joined this great exodus, or are we still able to keep you?
Yeah, I left as soon as Labour got in, and I think many, many more people are going to leave now. They're actually introducing the non-dom. You know, if you're going to keep taxing wealthy people for all their sort of wealth in other countries and all their assets, then why would you stay in the UK? You've got to remember these people have already paid lots of tax, and it's a bit like now. I think, you know, they're like a 3-star hotel, but we're paying 5-star money. You might as well just go to Dubai or Italy or other places, and you get more for your money and 70% cheaper. So this will continue. Obviously, they're saying it won't, and people ain't going, but we all know they are, and this will be the biggest blow to the economy now when they introduce this.
But do you think there are still business opportunities in the UK? Because I thought you'd set up a new version of Pimlico Plumbers in London.
Yeah, my family have set up a company called We Fix London, but we started planning that, you know, 2 years before Labour got in. If we'd known Labour was getting in, we wouldn't have planned it. So obviously we've got to comply with the tax regulations, but anybody with any sense would agree with what I'm saying. The taxes are too high in the UK for wealthy people. Wealthy people can go and work anywhere in the world and be financially a lot better off.
And it's true, isn't it, that in 1979, the top 1% of taxpayers paid 6% of income tax, and now they pay nearly 30%. So if you lose these high earners, there's no money to spend on public services, and the economy declines.
Well, of course, and I think what a lot of people have got to remember is that when the high taxpayers leave the UK, then it goes down in a pecking order. They're going to have to pay more taxes to support the economy and the country. So it's a massive loser. It's like a brain drain. They're getting all the right people that are leaving the country. I think Goldman Sachs have said that they've now got 400 people working in Italy. So you can imagine the amount of clients that they're dealing with. I mean, you understand banking and finances, and you know, I know you can't comment on it, but it's a no-brainer. I mean, they're driving people out, they're forcing them out. And it's not a case of people avoiding tax. They've already paid their tax, but they don't want to be taxed on their assets or their wealth that they're getting in other countries.
And we had a non-dom regime that was basically stable for 200 years. It's only recently that it's been changed. And we're changing it and making it harder, just as other countries are making it easier. So you can go to Italy and you can negotiate an amount that you will pay. Portugal's been welcoming people. Malta's been welcoming people. All over the world, countries are saying, please come and bring your money. And the UK is saying, we're going to take all your money. We don't want you anymore.
That's right. Look, I mean, they're all encouraging sort of UK business people to come there, and it's working. If you become a tax exile in Italy, you pay 200 grand for the year. You don't have to pay no more. But the real problem is we're wasting their money, and they should be encouraging entrepreneurs to be staying. I think our biggest export at the moment is wealthy people. They need to, you know, Reeves hasn't done anything correctly. You know, when she increased capital gains tax, I think they're 2 billion down. She's increased national insurance. There's 250 extra unemployed people. So she needs to, you know, I think, keep her mouth shut and listen to people that know what they're talking about.
So you're a businessman, you know how to do things and make a profit. If you're advising the Chancellor on how to get the money the country needs to pay for the public services, what would you be saying? Because at the moment, the tax revenues don't meet our expenditure. There is a gap. Something needs to give.
Resign.
All right, but that's not the answer. Say you take over. What would you do? You become Chancellor tomorrow in this brave new world, the Charlie Mullins Chancellorship. What's your first step to balance the books?
First step is to lower national insurance, probably reverse everything she's done, lower capital gains, stop this non-dom that they're going to be charging them extra money, do all away with that, and then obviously start encouraging people into the workplace with youngsters, apprentices first, and getting people into the workplace and getting the economy going. And of course, you know, we need to stop spending money on all the people that shouldn't be here.
And what would persuade you to come back, to change your mind and return to this sceptred isle?
When reform get in and Nigel Farage is Prime Minister, that's when I'll be back. And I think business will start booming because he understands that, you know, we've got to get the economy moving. And the way to get it moving is to encourage people back into the UK.
All right, well, I provide a simultaneous translation service. I think what you said was when Kemi Badenoch wins with an enormous majority and restores the country to fame and fortune. I'm not sure it translated perfectly from wherever you are across the seas. But, Charlie, thank you very much for joining me. Next, it's the one and only Patrick Christys. Patrick, Somerset defeated Durham today by 5 wickets in a marvellous show at Taunton. I hope that's going to be the mainstay of your programme tonight.
I'm going to do the first 1.5 hours on that, Jacob, but then in the last half hour, not really, don't worry, I'm going to try to highlight a bizarre press conference with police at Epping today. Really, really funny things going on at that migrant hotel. Similar situation that we've got going on at another migrant hotel now as well. Also, huge protests in Kiev tonight against Volodymyr Zelensky. Are his days a little bit numbered? We've got the latest economic figures out. James O'Brien from LBC is in massive, massive trouble. He had to apologise for something on air today, but was that apology good enough? And tomorrow, junior doctors will go on strike, and as far as I can tell, that means people will die. Your weather now, though.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, a very good evening to you. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. Look, a few of us have managed to see some sunshine today, but generally there's been a lot of cloud across the UK. Into this evening, though, we should start to see that cloud break up a touch more, and there will be some clearer spells developing. The showers that we've had around today as well, generally fading away for many of us, though lingering across the far north of Scotland. A few mist and fog patches are possible, but generally it's going to be a mild night. Temperatures ranging between 14 and 17 degrees Celsius as we start off Thursday morning. Those showers will still be in play tomorrow as well across the far north of Scotland, particularly in the Northern Isles around the Moray Firth, tending to be on the light side, and they'll steadily move their way eastwards as we move throughout the day. Central southern areas of Scotland and Northern Ireland getting off to a drier start with some sunny spells poking through, and reasonably similar for Wales and western areas of England. But you will just notice this rain area in the far east, and that's going to slip its way across parts of East Anglia, down towards the home counties in London, and eventually parts of Sussex and Kent as well throughout the day. So fairly damp and wet one to come here. The brightest and sunniest of skies reserved for those further towards the west, and here it should be dry and pleasant. And quite warm in that sunshine as well. Temperatures peaking around 24, maybe 25 degrees Celsius in places, 20 to 22